She's out cold, Henry. It's done. The words slithered from Stephen's lips, low and smug, as he stood just behind his wife in the dim glow of a Manhattan cafe. Shanice, radiant in her white dress shirt, cropped tweed jacket, and beige mermaid skirt, slumped over the table, her sleek, straight hair spilling like ink. The orange juice, laced with poison, sat untouched. She'd only pretended to sip, her eyes half open, heart pounding as she overheard her husband's chilling plan to steal her $1 million ad campaign. What happens when the one you trust most becomes your greatest threat? Will Shanice turn betrayal into vengeance? Subscribe now to follow her fight and share in the comments where you're watching from, what time it is, and rate this tale. 1 for gripping, 0 for not. Don't miss how this unfolds. What's your prediction for Shanice's next move? She's out cold, Henry. It's done. Stephen's voice was a low hiss, sharp as a blade, slicing through the warm hum of the Blue Bottle Cafe in Greenwich Village. The words landed like a punch to Shanice's gut, though her body stayed limp, slumped over the polished oak table. Her sleek, straight hair spilled across her white dress shirt, the cropped tweed jacket bunched at her shoulders, her beige mermaid skirt fanning out like a silent wave. The glass of orange juice sat before her, its vibrant hue masking the poison Stephen had slipped in moments ago. She hadn't drunk it, not really. A quick sleight of hand, a tilt of the glass, and a spill on her napkin had saved her. But her eyes, half open behind the curtain of her lashes, burned with a clarity that defied the haze he'd intended. The cafe buzzed with life, patrons clinking mugs, a barista steaming milk, and the faint wail of a saxophone drifting in from a street performer outside. The scent of roasted coffee mingled with the crisp October air, seeping through the open window. But for Shanice, the world had narrowed to Stephen's voice, just steps behind her. He stood by the counter, phone pressed to his ear, oblivious to her awareness. "The campaign's ours," he murmured to Henry, his tone smug, almost gleeful. "Maya's ready to present it as her own. By next week, Shanice will be out of the picture. Permanently." Her heart thundered, each beat a rebellion against the betrayal. Shanice, the brilliant marketing strategist who'd crafted $1 million ad campaign for a global brand, had trusted Stephen with every fiber of her being. His smile, those warm brown eyes, the way he'd handed her the orange juice with a playful, "Fresh, just like you, babe." It had all felt like love. Now it was a lie, bitter as the poison he thought she'd swallowed. She remembered a morning in Central Park months ago when he'd handed her a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice under the shade of an oak tree, their laughter echoing. That memory twisted now, a knife in her chest, as his words to Henry painted a different truth. He wanted her campaign, her legacy, her life. The saxophone outside wailed a mournful note, mirroring the ache in her soul. Shanice kept her breathing shallow, her body still, playing the part of the unconscious wife. Her mind, though, was a storm. The campaign, her campaign, was a masterpiece, a fusion of bold visuals and sharp storytelling that had already drawn praise from industry giants. She'd poured months into it, sacrificing sleep, sketching ideas on napkins, refining every detail. Stephen had been there, cheering her on, or so she'd thought. His questions about deadlines, his curiosity about her pitches, had it all been a charade to steal her work? And Henry, who was he? A name she'd heard in passing, a shadowy figure Stephen mentioned as a business contact. Now his name was a threat, a piece of the puzzle she hadn't seen coming. Stephen's voice dropped lower, but Shanice caught every word. "The dosage is perfect," he said. "She'll fade slowly. Migraines, fatigue, then gone. No one will suspect a thing." Her fingers twitched, a reflex she quickly suppressed. Fade? The word ignited something fierce in her. Shanice didn't fade. She blazed. She'd clawed her way through a cutthroat industry, a black woman in boardrooms where she was often the only one. Her campaigns had redefined brands, turned heads, and won awards. And now her own husband thought he could erase her? For what? A payout, a power grab, a partnership with this Henry and Maya? The cafe's chatter faded as her focus sharpened. She needed to act, to turn this betrayal into a weapon. But first, she had to survive this moment. Stephen ended the call, his footsteps clicking closer. She felt his shadow fall over her, his breath warm against her cheek as he leaned down. "Shanice, baby?" His voice was honeyed, a sickening mockery of concern. She stayed limp, eyes barely open, praying he wouldn't notice the flicker of her lashes. His fingers brushed her hair, and she fought the urge to recoil. "Let's get you home," he murmured, slipping an arm under her shoulders. The street outside buzzed with New York's pulse, taxis honking, pedestrians rushing, the saxophone weaving through it all. Stephen half carried her to their car, her body a dead weight, her mind racing. She thought of Lily, her college friend, a razor-sharp investigative journalist who'd once saved her from a smear campaign at NYU. Lily would know what to do. And James, the private investigator Lily had mentioned, a man who'd seen the dark underbelly of the ad world. They were her lifeline now, her only hope against the man she'd vowed to love forever. As Stephen drove through Manhattan's glittering streets, Shanice's eyes fluttered, catching glimpses of neon signs and towering skyscrapers. The orange juice's bitter aftertaste lingered on her tongue, though she'd barely touched it. It wasn't just a drink anymore. It was a symbol of everything Stephen had broken. But Shanice wasn't broken. Not yet, not ever. She clung to the memory of his call, every word seared into her mind. Henry, Maya, the campaign. She'd play their game, let them think she was fading. But beneath the facade, she was forging a plan, one that would turn their poison into her power. The car stopped at their Upper West Side penthouse, and Stephen carried her inside, his touch a cold reminder of his deceit. As he lay her on the bed, Shanice's resolve hardened. The city's pulse thrummed outside, a rhythm that matched her own. She wasn't the woman Stephen thought he could erase. She was Shanice, and she would fight. The saxophone's distant wail faded, but her fire burned brighter than ever. The penthouse was a gilded cage, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan's glittering skyline, a cruel contrast to the darkness closing in on Shanice's heart. She lay on the plush bed, her sleek straight hair fanned across the pillow, her white dress shirt slightly unbuttoned, the cropped tweed jacket discarded beside her. The beige mermaid skirt clung to her, a reminder of the elegance Stephen had tried to poison out of her. Her eyes, half-lidded, played the part of a woman lost to the drug he thought she'd swallowed. But her mind was a furnace, burning with his words from the cafe. "She'll fade slowly. Gone." The memory of his voice, cold and smug, just steps behind her, fueled a fire that refused to dim. Stephen moved through the apartment, his footsteps sharp on the hardwood floor. The distant hum of taxis and the pulse of New York's Upper West Side seeped through the walls, grounding her. She needed to act, but every move had to be precise. His shadow loomed as he paused by the bed, his fingers grazing her wrist. "Rest, babe," he murmured, his voice a practiced lie, dripping with false concern. She kept her breathing shallow, her body limp, but her pulse raced. He didn't know she'd heard him, didn't know she'd tasted betrayal instead of orange juice. That ignorance was her weapon. When his footsteps faded toward his office, Shanice's eyes snapped open. The city's neon glow cast jagged patterns across the ceiling, mirroring the chaos in her mind. She slid off the bed, her bare feet silent on the cold floor, and crept to the living room. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from fury. Stephen had always been meticulous, his charm a mask for control. The way he'd probed about her campaign, his late-night calls, Maya's visits with her too-perfect smile, it all made sense now. She needed proof, something to anchor the nightmare she'd overheard. His phone sat on the marble counter, a sleek black device that held his secrets. Shanice's breath caught as she picked it up, her fingers brushing the screen. The lock code, her birthday, a cruel irony, gave way to a flood of messages. One caught her eye, a cryptic note to Henry about a meeting at the Standard. "Finalize the transfer. She's almost out." Her stomach twisted. The campaign, her masterpiece of bold visuals and sharp storytelling, was being stolen piece by piece. Henry. Who was he? A name Stephen had dropped casually, a big player in advertising. Now he was the architect of her erasure. The sound of a door creaking sent her heart into her throat. She shoved the phone back, darting to the couch and slumping into it just as Stephen emerged. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned her. "Shanice? You're up." His tone was laced with suspicion, a blade hidden in velvet. She forced a weak smile, letting her voice tremble. "Just dizzy. Needed to sit." Her fingers clutched the edge of her skirt, the beige fabric grounding her. He studied her, his gaze lingering too long, as if searching for cracks in her facade. "You should be in bed," he said, stepping closer. "You look pale." She nodded, letting her head loll slightly, playing the part of the fragile wife. "You're right," she whispered, shuffling back to the bedroom. His eyes followed her, and she felt their weight, a predator sizing up prey. But she wasn't prey, not anymore. The moment he turned away, she slipped her old college phone from a hidden pocket in her jacket, a relic Stephen didn't know about. Her fingers flew, texting Lily. "He's trying to destroy me. I heard him. Help." Lily's reply came fast, her words a lifeline. "I'm on it. Send me a hair sample. Don't trust anyone." Lily, the fierce journalist who'd once exposed a corrupt professor to save Shanice's scholarship, was her anchor. They'd bonded over late-night study sessions at NYU, laughing over cheap coffee and dreaming of conquering New York. Now Lily's investigative instincts were Shanice's hope. The hair sample, proof of the poison, would be her first step. She tucked the phone away, her mind racing through the next moves. In the bathroom, she locked the door, her reflection in the mirror a stranger's. Her sleek hair framed a face hardened by betrayal, but her eyes burned with defiance. She plucked a few strands, sealing them in a small plastic bag from her purse. Every creak of the penthouse made her flinch, the city's pulse outside a reminder of the stakes. Stephen's voice echoed in her head, his call to Henry a brand on her soul. She'll fade slowly. No, she thought, tucking the bag away. She'd shine brighter than ever. As she slipped back into bed, Stephen's shadow appeared in the doorway. "Feeling better?" he asked, his smile too smooth, too practiced. She nodded weakly, letting her lashes flutter. "Just tired," she mumbled. He kissed her forehead, his touch cold as ice, and left for his office. The door clicked shut, and Shanice's eyes opened wide. The city's neon lights danced outside, a symphony of chaos and possibility. She wasn't fading. She was waking. Lily's words echoed. "Don't trust anyone." Shanice thought of Maya, her syrupy smiles and probing questions about the campaign, and Henry, a shadow she couldn't yet see. The penthouse, once a symbol of their shared dreams, was now a battlefield. Shanice's fingers traced the edge of her skirt, grounding her resolve. She'd play Stephen's game, let him think he'd won. But every word he'd spoken behind her back, every lie in that orange juice, was fuel for her fire. The city's rhythm pulsed through her, a promise of reckoning. She wasn't the woman he thought he could erase. She was Shanice, and she would fight. Rain streaked the penthouse windows, blurring Manhattan's skyline into a mosaic of gray and neon. Shanice stood in the bathroom, her sleek straight hair framing a face taut with resolve, her white dress shirt crisp despite the chaos within. The cropped tweed jacket hung on the door, her beige mermaid skirt swaying as she moved. The plastic bag with her hair sample, proof of Stephen's poison, was tucked in her purse, a silent vow to fight. His words from the cafe, hissed to Henry just steps behind her, echoed like a pulse. She'll fade slowly. But Shanice was no ghost. She was fire, and the city's restless rhythm fueled her. The penthouse was quiet, Stephen's absence a rare gift. She'd sent the hair sample to Lily at dawn, slipping it into a mailbox on Columbus Avenue, her heart racing with every step. The city's pulse, taxi horns, distant sirens, the clatter of morning commuters, had urged her forward. Now back in the apartment, she needed more than a hunch. She needed evidence to unravel the web Stephen, Henry, and Maya were spinning. The memory of his phone, its cryptic note about a meeting at the Standard, burned in her mind. She had to dig deeper. Stephen's office was a fortress of order, its sleek desk and leather chair a mockery of his deceit. Shanice crept inside, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. The rain's patter masked her movements, a conspirator in her rebellion. She rifled through his desk, her fingers trembling as they uncovered a folder labeled Campaign Transfer. Inside were notes in Stephen's precise scrawl, timelines, contract drafts, and a chilling phrase, incapacitation clause. It was her campaign, her masterpiece of bold visuals and sharp storytelling, being dissected for Henry's gain. A sticky note mentioned Maya, with a date and time for a meeting. She's watching her closely, it read. Shanice's blood ran cold. Maya, with her syrupy smiles and Soho bakery boxes, wasn't just Stephen's partner. She was his spy. The doorbell chimed, sharp and jarring. Shanice froze, shoving the folder back. Her pulse thundered as she hurried to the living room, smoothing her skirt. Through the peephole, Maya's face appeared, all polished charm and calculated warmth. "Shanice, darling," Maya called, her voice dripping honey as she entered with a box of pastries from Levain Bakery. "Thought you could use a treat. You've been so pale lately." Her eyes, sharp as glass, lingered on Shanice, probing for weakness. Shanice forced a weak smile, her mind screaming, "She knows something." "Thanks, Maya," she murmured, letting her voice waver. "Just tired." Maya's gaze flicked to the office door, a fleeting betrayal of suspicion. "Stephen mentioned you've been off," she said, setting the box down. "You should rest. Big week ahead, right?" The words were a trap, testing Shanice's facade. She nodded, clutching her jacket's hem, the tweed rough against her fingers. "Yeah, big week," she echoed, her eyes dropping to hide the fire within. Maya lingered, her smile too wide, then left with a breezy, "Take care." The door clicked shut, but Shanice felt the weight of her scrutiny, a noose tightening. Alone again, she sank onto the couch, her breath ragged. Maya's visit wasn't kindness, it was surveillance. The pastries, like the orange juice, were a mask for malice. Shanice's phone buzzed. Lily. "Hair sample tested positive. Tetrodotoxin, low dose. Someone's poisoning you, Shanice. I'm sending James. He's a PI, been burned by this industry. Trust him." Lily's voice, steady as ever, was a lifeline. Shanice remembered their NYU days, Lily exposing a professor's scam to save her scholarship. Now she was saving her life. James arrived an hour later, his weathered face and sharp eyes a contrast to the penthouse's gloss. "Lily says you're in deep," he said, handing her a small USB device, its surface matte black. "This records audio and video. Plant it where they talk." His voice carried the grit of someone who'd seen betrayal up close. A story he didn't share, but Shanice felt in his gaze. She nodded, slipping the USB into her purse. "They're watching me," she whispered. "Maya was here, asking questions." James's jaw tightened. "Then you move fast. They're closing in." The rain grew heavier, drumming the windows like a warning. Shanice's mind raced, piecing together the puzzle. Stephen's call, Maya's spying, Henry's shadow. It was a network designed to erase her. But she wasn't invisible. She was Shanice, who'd fought for every inch in a world that often overlooked her. Her campaign, her legacy, was hers alone, and she'd claw it back. She thought of Central Park, that morning with Stephen, the orange juice sweet under the oaks. Now it was a lie, but lies could be weapons too. As night fell, the city's neon glow bathed the penthouse in electric hues. Shanice stood by the window, her reflection fierce despite the exhaustion tugging at her. The USB in her purse was a ticking bomb, ready to capture Stephen's next move. Maya's probing eyes haunted her, but so did Lily's voice. Trust him. James's grit, Lily's fire. They were her army now. The rain's rhythm matched her pulse, a call to battle. Stephen thought he'd dimmed her light, but he'd only ignited it. She'd play his game, let him think she was fading. But in the shadows she was sharpening her edges, ready to cut through his deceit. The penthouse glowed under the amber haze of pendant lights, casting shadows that danced like secrets across the polished dining table. Shanice sat poised, her sleek, shashed straight hair framing her face, the white dress shirt crisp against her skin, the cropped tweed jacket draped over her chair. Her beige mermaid skirt shimmered faintly, a quiet rebellion against the storm brewing within. The air was thick with the scent of roasted lamb and rosemary, a dinner Stephen had insisted on hosting with Maya. Outside, Manhattan's neon pulse flickered, a heartbeat syncing with Shanice's own. The USB device, a cold weight in her purse, was her weapon tonight. Stephen's words from the cafe, hissed to Henry behind her back, still burned. She'll fade slowly. But she was no fading star. She was a supernova, ready to explode their lies. Stephen poured wine, his smile a polished mask, his eyes darting to her with calculated warmth. "You look better tonight, babe," he said, handing her a glass. She nodded weakly, letting her fingers tremble as she took it, careful not to drink. Maya sat across, her tailored blazer sharp, her smile too sweet, like the levain pastries she'd brought days ago. "You've been so quiet, Shanice," Maya said, her tone probing, eyes glinting like a predator's. "Everything okay with the campaign?" The question was a jab, testing her facade. Shanice forced a faint smile, her voice soft. "Just tired. It's a lot." Her heart pounded, the USB's presence a silent scream in her purse, the city's distant hum, taxi horns, a faint saxophone wail, filtered through the windows, grounding her. She needed to plant the device, but every move was a risk. Stephen's suspicion had grown since her stumble in his office, his gaze sharper, his questions laced with traps. Maya's visit had confirmed it. They were watching her, waiting for her to slip. But Shanice was no pawn. She'd spent years crafting campaigns that outsmarted the sharpest minds in advertising. Now she'd outsmart them. As Stephen turned to refill Maya's glass, Shanice seized her chance. "I'll grab the dessert," she murmured, rising with deliberate slowness. Her skirt swished as she moved to the kitchen, her purse clutched tight. She slipped the USB from its hiding spot, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline. The dining table was steps away, its underside a perfect hiding place. She dropped to one knee, pretending to adjust her shoe, and pressed the device into place, its adhesive catching the wood. Her pulse thundered, the city's rhythm outside a mirror to her own. Footsteps clicked. Stephen's voice cut through the air. "Shanice? What's taking so long?" She froze, the USB barely secured. Her breath hitched as she stood, smoothing her skirt, and turned to face him. He stood in the doorway, his eyes narrowing, a glass of wine in hand. "Just fixing my shoe," she said, her voice trembling for effect. His gaze lingered, slicing through her facade, searching for cracks. "You're clumsy tonight," he said, his smile thin, a blade wrapped in silk. She forced a laugh, weak and shaky, and brushed past him, her skin prickling under his stare. Back at the table, Maya's eyes flicked to her, sharp as a hawk's. "You sure you're okay, Shanice?" she asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "You seem distracted." The word was a dart, and Shanice felt its sting. She nodded, letting her shoulders slump, playing the fragile wife. "Just a headache," she mumbled, her fingers brushing the tweed jacket for comfort. The USB was in place, a ticking bomb ready to capture their truth. She just had to survive the night. Dinner dragged on, the clink of cutlery a tense rhythm. Stephen and Maya talked business, their voices casual but laced with intent. "The campaign's ready for the board," Maya said, her eyes sliding to Shanice. "We'll need someone reliable to present it." Stephen nodded, his hand brushing Shanice's. "Don't worry, Maya, it's handled." His touch was cold, a claim more than comfort. Shanice's stomach churned, but she kept her face blank, her mind replaying their cafe betrayal. Henry, the campaign, my life. She was steps ahead, her trap set. As Maya left, her parting smile was a warning. "Rest up, Shanice," she said, her tone syrupy. "Big days ahead." The door clicked shut, and Stephen turned to her, his eyes probing. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he said, his voice soft but edged. "Let me take care of you." She nodded, her throat tight, and retreated to the bedroom. Alone, she retrieved the USB, her hands trembling as she plugged it into her old phone. The recording crackled to life, Stephen's voice low and smug. "She's fading fast, Maya. Henry's got the board locked. Once she's out, the campaign's ours." Maya's laugh, sharp and cruel, followed. She's too trusting, always was. Shanice's hands shook, not from fear but fury. Her campaign, her blood and sweat, was being stolen by the man she'd loved, the woman she tolerated, and a shadow named Henry. She thought of Lily, her fierce ally, and James, the PI with his own scars. They were her army now. The city's neon glow pulsed outside, a beacon of defiance. She wasn't fading, she was rising. The USB was her sword, and she'd wield it at the right moment. Stephen's touch, his lies, his poison, they'd all burn. The rain had stopped, but Manhattan's rhythm roared on, matching the fire in her soul. She was Shanice, and she'd make them pay. The Midtown office buzzed with frenetic energy, its glass walls reflecting Manhattan's skyline in sharp electric hues. Shanice sat at her desk, her sleek, straight hair catching the light, her white dress shirt tucked neatly into the beige mermaid skirt. The cropped tweed jacket hung over her chair, a quiet nod to the elegance she wielded like armor. The USB's weight lingered in her mind, its recording of Stephen and Maya's cruel laughter. She's too trusting, a brand on her soul. The city's pulse, a symphony of taxi horns and distant sirens, thrummed through the windows, urging her forward. She was no longer the woman Stephen thought he could erase. She was a strategist, and the campaign launched tomorrow would be her battlefield. Stephen's suspicion had sharpened since the dinner, his eyes tracking her like a predator's. Last night's close call, his footsteps interrupting her planting of the USB, haunted her. She'd played the fragile wife, but his gaze had cut deeper, searching for cracks. Now she had to move faster. Lily's text arrived on the burner phone tucked in her purse, bought from a Times Square kiosk. James hacked Stephen's email. Henry's pushing the board to declare you unfit. Be careful. Shanice's fingers tightened around her pen, her campaign notes sprawling across the desk. A masterpiece of bold visuals and sharp storytelling, now a prize in their crosshairs. She forced her hands to tremble as she spilled a blue bottle coffee cup, the dark liquid pooling on her papers. "Oh, damn," she muttered, loud enough for a passing colleague to hear. The act was deliberate, reinforcing the image of a woman unraveling. Stephen's voice echoed from the hallway, his charm disarming a junior exec. "Shanice is struggling," he said, his tone dripping with false concern. "She needs rest." Her stomach churned, but she kept her face blank, her eyes downcast. He was setting the stage, painting her as incompetent to steal her work. But she was steps ahead, her trap ready to spring. Lily met her in a crowded Starbucks on 42nd Street, the burner phone a lifeline between them. "Henry's a shark," Lily said, her voice low, her eyes scanning the room. "He's got a board member in his pocket, some guy named Carter. James found an email. They're planning to announce your incapacitation at the launch." Shanice's heart raced, the memory of Stephen's cafe call. She'll fade slowly, stinging anew. Lily slid a copy of Adweek across the table, an article praising Henry's influence in advertising. "He's untouchable, or so he thinks," Lily said, her journalist's fire blazing. "But you've got the recording. It's your move." James joined them, his weathered face etched with the scars of his own betrayals in the ad world. "The USB's clean," he said, his voice gruff. "Audio and video are solid. Plant it in the conference room tomorrow. I'll handle the tech to broadcast it." His eyes met hers, a shared understanding of being burned by those they trusted. Shanice nodded, her fingers brushing the tweed jacket in her bag for courage. "They think I'm fading," she said softly. "Let them." Back at the office, Maya appeared, her tailored suit as sharp as her smile. "Shanice, you look exhausted," she said, her voice syrupy, her eyes probing like daggers. "Maybe sit out the launch? Stephen's worried about you." The words were a test, a blade wrapped in concern. Shanice let her shoulders slump, her voice trembling. "I'll try to make it," she mumbled, her eyes flicking away. Maya's smile widened, satisfied, but Shanice caught the glint of triumph in her gaze. The game was on, and Shanice was playing to win. Alone at her desk, she opened the burner phone, James's encrypted file waiting. The email from Henry to Stephen was chilling. "Carter's on board. Declare her unfit at the launch. The campaign's ours. Her breath caught, a flicker of doubt creeping in. Could she outmaneuver Henry, a titan with connections that ran deeper than she'd imagined? She thought of Central Park, that morning with Stephen, the orange juice sweet under the oaks. The memory twisted, a reminder of his betrayal. She pushed the doubt aside, her resolve hardening. She wasn't just fighting for her campaign, she was fighting for her life. The office emptied as dusk fell, Manhattan's neon glow painting the walls in electric streaks. Shanice stood, smoothing her skirt, her reflection in the glass fierce despite the weight of betrayal. The burner phone buzzed. Lily again. "You're not alone," she texted. "James and I have your back." Shanice's lips curved, a spark of hope igniting. Lily's fire, James's grit. They were her army. The campaign launch loomed, a stage for her reckoning. Stephen thought he'd poisoned her spirit, but he'd only sharpened it. She slipped into the conference room, the USB a cold promise in her hand. Tomorrow she'd plant it, let Stephen and Maya walk into her trap. The city's rhythm pulsed outside. Taxis, sirens, a distant saxophone weaving through the chaos. Shanice's fingers traced the edge of her jacket, grounding her. She wasn't fading. She was rising, a black woman in a world that underestimated her. The orange juice's bitter ghost lingered, but it was no longer poison. It was fuel. Tomorrow she'd step into the light, and Stephen's lies would burn. The chandeliered ballroom of the Manhattan Hotel glittered like a constellation, its golden light bathing the crowd of executives and clients in a glow of ambition. Shanice stood at Stephen's side, her sleek, straight hair framing her face, the white dress shirt crisp beneath her cropped tweed jacket. Her beige mermaid skirt shimmered, a silent defiance against the poison Stephen thought he'd fed her. The city's pulse, taxi horns, neon hum, thrummed beyond the towering windows, sinking with her racing heart. The USB, now hidden in the conference room's projector system, was her sword, ready to strike. Stephen's arm looped through hers, his smile a polished lie, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. He thought she was fading. Tonight, she'd burn brighter than ever. Maya took the stage, her tailored suit sharp, her voice commanding as she presented Shanice's campaign, a masterpiece of bold visuals and sharp storytelling, as her own. "This is the future of advertising," Maya declared, her smile gleaming for the crowd. Shanice's fingers tightened on her clutch, the burner phone inside buzzing with Lily's signal. "Ready." James, stationed in the tech booth, was her silent ally, his own scars from the industry fueling his resolve. The crowd murmured approval, but their whispers carried pity for Shanice, the fragile wife Stephen had painted. She let her shoulders slump, her eyes half-lidded, playing the part one last time. Stephen leaned in, his breath hot against her ear. "Hold it together, babe," he whispered, his voice a velvet threat. "You're doing great." His words echoed the cafe where he'd called Henry behind her back. "She's out cold." The memory of that orange juice, its bitter promise, ignited her fury. She nodded weakly, her hand brushing the tweed jacket for courage. The stage was set, and Maya was walking into her trap. As Maya clicked to the next slide, Shanice gave Lily the nod. The screen flickered, and the ballroom fell silent. Stephen's voice crackled through the speakers, cold and smug. "She's fading fast, Maya. Henry's got the board locked. Once she's out, the campaign's ours." Maya's laugh followed, sharp and cruel. "She's too trusting. Always was." Gasps rippled through the crowd as the video played. Stephen, in the cafe, pouring poison into Shanice's orange juice, his back to her, slumped form. The image froze on his face, a predator unmasked. Shanice's heart pounded, but her resolve was iron. Maya's composure shattered, her face paling as she stammered, "This is a lie." Stephen lunged toward the stage, his voice a snarl. "It's fabricated. Turn it off." But James in the booth looped the video, the truth inescapable. The crowd's whispers turned to outrage, eyes darting between Shanice and the screen. She stepped forward, shedding her fragile facade, her skirt swaying like a battle flag. "This campaign is mine," she said, her voice clear, cutting through the chaos. "My work, my vision. They tried to steal it, and me, with poison." The ballroom erupted, applause mingling with shocked murmurs. Stephen's face drained of color, his charm crumbling. "Shanice, you don't understand," he began, but she cut him off, her eyes blazing. "I heard you, Stephen, in the cafe, behind my back. You thought I was gone." Maya froze, her eyes darting to the exits, but security blocked her path. Lily emerged from the crowd, her journalist's fire burning, a notebook in hand. "It's over," she said, her voice steady. "The police are here." Officers stormed the ballroom, their steps deliberate, cuffs gleaming under the chandeliers. "Stephen Carter, Maya Reynolds, you're under arrest," one declared, snapping metal around their wrists. Stephen's eyes met Shanice's, a mix of fury and desperation. "You'll regret that," he hissed as they led him away. Maya's head bowed, her empire collapsing. The crowd parted, their pity for Shanice turning to awe. She stood tall, her sleek hair catching the light, a queen reclaiming her throne. But as the applause faded, the burner phone buzzed in her clutch. A text, anonymous but unmistakable. "You haven't won yet. H. Henry." The name sent a chill down her spine. His shadow had loomed over Stephen's plans, a puppeteer pulling strings. The Adweek article Lily had shown her, praising his influence, flashed in her mind. He wasn't in cuffs. He was still out there, a threat unmasked but unbound. Shanice's fingers tightened on her clutch, the tweed jacket a grounding weight. She'd won this battle, but the war wasn't over. Lily approached, her eyes fierce. "You did it," she said, squeezing Shanice's arm. "But Henry's not done. We need to move fast." James joined them, his gruff voice low. "I've got leads on his network. He's not untouchable." Shanice nodded, her resolve unshaken. The city's neon glow pulsed outside, a beacon of defiance. She thought of the orange juice, its bitter ghost now a symbol of her strength. Stephen and Maya were gone, but Henry's threat lingered, a shadow she'd face next. She stepped toward the window, Manhattan's skyline sprawling before her. The crowd's whispers faded, replaced by the city's rhythm. Sirens, taxis, a distant saxophone weaving through the night. Shanice wasn't the woman Stephen had tried to erase. She was a force, a black woman who'd clawed her way through a ruthless industry. Her campaign was hers again, but Henry's text was a warning. He'd come for her. She smoothed her skirt, her eyes blazing. Let him try. The city's pulse roared, and Shanice was ready. The Brooklyn apartment hummed with new beginnings, its wide windows spilling sunlight across Shanice's desk, where sketches of her next campaign lay scattered. Her sleek, straight hair caught the morning glow, her white dress shirt crisp, the cropped tweed jacket slung over a chair. The beige mermaid skirt swayed as she moved, a quiet echo of the strength she'd reclaimed. Outside, the borough's pulse, laughter from a nearby cafe, the wail of a saxophone, the clatter of skateboarders, wove through the air, a stark contrast to the gilded cage of the Manhattan penthouse. Henry's text from the launch, "You haven't won yet," lingered like a shadow, but Shanice was no longer the woman who'd slumped over a cafe table, betrayed by orange juice. She was a force, and Brooklyn was her fortress. She'd taken back her campaign, its bold visuals and sharp storytelling, now hers alone. The launch's aftermath had sparked headlines, Stephen and Maya's arrests dominating industry chatter. Shanice had leased this apartment, a haven of exposed brick and open space, to start anew. She'd also launched a foundation to support young marketers, inspired by her own fight. But Henry's shadow loomed, his absence from the police's net a gnawing unease. The Adweek article Lily had shown her, touting his influence, haunted her quieter moments. He was out there, plotting. Her burner phone buzzed, Lily's name flashing. "Henry's not done," Lily said, her voice taut. "I traced a hacker he hired. They planted fake documents on your work laptop, emails claiming you stole the campaign from a rival firm." Shanice's breath caught, her fingers tightening on the phone. Her laptop, a lifeline for her work, was now a trap. She rushed to it, the screen glowing in the sunlit room. Buried in her email drafts were forged messages, dated months back, accusing her of plagiarism. Her heart sank. Henry was trying to ruin her reputation, even from the shadows. The apartment's warmth turned stifling. She paced, her skirt brushing her legs, and stopped at a shelf where a framed photo of her and Stephen sat, a relic she hadn't yet discarded. Taken in Central Park, it captured a moment when his orange juice tasted sweet, not poisoned. Her fingers trembled as she touched the frame, and then she froze. A tiny black device, no bigger than a dime, was taped to its back. A bug. Henry's reach was closer than she'd thought. For a moment, doubt crept in. Could she outmaneuver someone so powerful? Her campaigns had toppled brands, but Henry was a titan, his influence sprawling like New York's skyline. Lily's voice cut through her thoughts, a call on the burner. "Don't spiral, Shanice," she said, her journalist's edge sharp. "James and I found a lead. Henry's got a board member, Carter, in his pocket. We can trap him." James on the line added, "Carter's meeting you tomorrow at a Williamsburg cafe. Play dumb. I'll record it." His gruff tone carried the weight of his own industry betrayals, a bond Shanice felt in her bones. She nodded, though they couldn't see, her resolve reigniting. The orange juice's bitter ghost flashed in her mind. Not poison now, but fuel. The next day, she sat at a corner table in a Williamsburg cafe, the air thick with espresso and hipster chatter. Her tweed jacket was folded beside her, the beige skirt a quiet statement of poise. Carter, a balding man with a nervous tic, arrived, his eyes darting. "Shanice, we're worried about you," he began, his voice oily. "Those emails, they're damaging. Step back. Let us handle the campaign fallout." His words were a trap, Henry's script clear in every syllable. Shanice leaned forward, her voice soft but laced with steel. "What emails, Carter? Tell me who sent them." She let her eyes widen, feigning confusion, while James across the room aimed a hidden recorder. Carter faltered, sweat beading on his brow. "Just industry chatter. Henry mentioned some concerns." His slip was small but damning. Shanice pressed, her smile fragile. "Henry? What's he got to do with this?" Carter stammered, revealing Henry's plan to discredit her. "He just wants what's best for the firm," he said too quickly. James's nod from the corner confirmed the recording was clean. Shanice's heart raced, but her face stayed blank, a master strategist at work. As Carter left, the burner buzzed with another text from Henry. "You can't hide forever." The words sent a chill down her spine, but they also stoked her fire. She wasn't hiding. She was hunting. Back in her apartment, she played the recording, Carter's voice a clear link to Henry's scheme. Lily and James arrived, their faces grim but determined. "This is enough to nail Carter," James said. "But Henry's slippery. We need to hit him at the source." Lily nodded, her eyes blazing. "A press conference. Times Square. We expose him." Shanice stood by the window, Brooklyn's skyline sprawling before her. The saxophone's wail drifted from a nearby bar, a melody of defiance. Doubt lingered. Henry's reach was vast, but the orange juice's memory, once bitter, now powered her. She wasn't the woman Stephen had tried to erase. She was Shanice, a black woman who'd fought for every inch in this city. Carter's confession was her weapon, and Henry's time was running out. The city's pulse roared, and she was ready to strike. Sunlight poured into Shanice's Brooklyn studio, bathing her drafting table in a golden glow, where sketches for her next campaign sprawled like promises. Her sleek, straight hair shimmered, framing her face, the white dress shirt crisp against her skin. The cropped tweed jacket hung over a chair, her beige mermaid skirt a quiet testament to her unyielding grace. Outside, Brooklyn's pulse thrummed, skateboarders clattering, a saxophone weaving through the morning air, the city's rhythm a mirror to her own. Henry's chilling text, "You can't hide forever," still echoed, but the fear it once sparked had dulled. The bug in the photo frame, Carter's confession in the Williamsburg cafe, they'd armed her for this final battle. Shanice wasn't hiding. She was rising, a black woman who turned poison into power. The Times Square press conference loomed, a stage to end Henry's reign. Lily had secured a slot at a conference center, its massive LED screens ready to broadcast Carter's recorded admission. Shanice stood before her mirror, smoothing her skirt, her eyes fierce. The foundation she'd launched, supporting young marketers, was already gaining traction, a beacon for those silenced by betrayal. But Henry's shadow lingered, his influence a specter in the industry. The Adweek article praising him, the forged emails on her laptop, his taunting texts, they were his last attempt to bury her. She'd bury him instead. The conference center buzzed with reporters, their cameras flashing like stars in the neon-drenched chaos of Times Square. Shanice stepped to the podium, her voice steady, cutting through the hum. "My campaign was stolen," she began, her words sharp as a blade. "By those I trusted, by a man who thought he could erase me." The screen flared to life, Carter's voice spilling out. "Henry wants her out. The emails will ruin her." Gasps rippled through the crowd as the recording looped, his confession damning. Shanice's heart pounded, but her gaze was iron. "Henry Brooks orchestrated this," she said. "He's done." The room erupted, reporters scrambling for quotes, phones buzzing with breaking news. Carter's career was over, fired by the board, facing fraud charges. But as Shanice stepped down, her burner phone vibrated. A letter slipped into her bag, in Stephen's jagged scrawl. "I'm sorry, Shanice, but Henry's not done. You haven't seen his reach." Her breath caught, the orange juice's bitter ghost flashing in her mind. Stephen's betrayal in that cafe, his voice behind her back. She tore the letter, her fingers steady, but the warning lingered. Henry was still free. That night, the burner phone rang, a video call from an encrypted app. Henry's face appeared, his silver hair stark against a dark office, his eyes cold. "Impressive, Shanice," he said, his voice smooth but venomous. "You took down Carter, but I'm not him. I own this industry." His words were a blade, meant to cut her resolve. Shanice leaned closer, her eyes blazing. "You're finished, Henry. Your network's crumbling. I control this story now." She saw his jaw tighten, a crack in his armor. "You're a footnote," he sneered, but his voice wavered. She ended the call, her heart racing but unbroken. James's intel confirmed it. Henry's allies were abandoning him, his influence gutted by the press conference. The forged emails were traced to a hired hacker, now cooperating with authorities. Shanice stood in her studio, the city's pulse, saxophones, sirens, laughter, flowing through the open window. She'd won, but Stephen's letter gnawed at her. Had she missed something? She pushed the thought aside, her fingers tracing the tweed jacket. Doubt had no place here. She'd built this victory from ashes. Her foundation grew, funding young marketers, especially women of color, to protect their ideas. She mentored a shy designer, her sketches echoing Shanice's own fire. The studio walls were pinned with new campaign ideas, bold lines, and sharper stories. Central Park beckoned, and she walked its paths, the sunlight filtering through oaks, a far cry from that morning with Stephen's orange juice. The memory was no longer painful. It was proof of her survival. She paused by a fountain, the water's ripple a quiet applause. Lily visited, her journalist's edge softened by pride. "You changed the game," she said, handing Shanice a coffee from a nearby cart. James joined them, his gruff smile rare but warm. "Henry's done," he said. "No one's touching you now." Shanice nodded, her heart steady. The city's rhythm wrapped around her. Taxis, street vendors, a distant saxophone weaving a melody of renewal. She thought of the photo frame, now in a dumpster, its bugs silenced. Stephen's betrayal, Maya's schemes, Henry's threats. They were ghosts fading in her light. She returned to her studio, the sunset painting Brooklyn in gold. Her latest campaign sketch lay on the table, a vision of empowerment. She dipped her pen, the lines bold, purposeful. A spill of ink marred the page, and for a moment, panic flared. Stephen's orange juice, the poison, the lies. But she stopped, tracing the spill, weaving it into the design. The flaw became a strength, a symbol of scars transformed. Shanice smiled, her sleek hair catching the light, her skirt swaying as she stood. She wasn't the woman who'd slumped in that cafe. She was Shanice, architect of her future, her legacy reclaimed. The city sang, and she was its brightest note. Shanice's fire has burned through betrayal, her light unyielding against the shadows of Stephen's poison and Henry's schemes. From the bitter taste of orange juice to the bold lines of her reclaimed legacy, her journey is a testament to resilience. What did her fight stir in you? Did her defiance spark a memory, a fury, or a hope of your own? Drop a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from, what time it is, and rate this tale. 1 for gripping, 0 if it missed the mark. Your voice matters, just like hers. Thank you for walking this New York Odyssey with us, for every gasp and cheer along the way. The city's pulse never stops, and neither do we. Stay tuned for more stories of courage and triumph. Until next time, keep forging your own path.